Here's what happened on this week's Friday Night Smackdown. We're live from New York City, New York. The camera pans out to show the sold-out crowd of Madison Square Garden. The show opens with Paul Heyman waiting for the arrival of the Bloodline. Solo and the fake Usos show up and Paul Heyman asks Solo, "Where is Jacob Fatu? You know, the dude that murdered Cody last week." Solo doesn't give an answer and starts heading out to the ring. He walks through the backstage area and makes his entrance. But before he can complete his entrance, the Tron shows that someone else is also here. It is Cody Rhodes with RKO. They make their way through to the arena and all 6 men have a standoff. And it is on. Cody goes after Solo. Kevin goes after one fake Uso. Randy goes after the other one. Kevin lays him down on the table and climbs the railing. He swanton bombs him through the table. Holy cow, Kevin Owens, you the man. After Cody and Randy take care of the Bloodline, Nick Aldis shows up with security to handle the matter. The security contains Solo and Solo says to the fake Uso that it is better to leave now than to get into a fight. The Bloodline leaves, but in the ring, Cody, Randy and Kevin are standing tall. Nick tries to talk to them to get them to leave so the show could continue. They refuse to do so. The security enters the ring to take care of business, but instead, the security gets taken care of by all 3. Nick leaves the ringside filled with disappointment and anger. These 3 are still in the ring and the security is laid out. Kevin grabs the mic and says that if the Bloodline thought that we would wait till Money in the Bank, the Bloodline is even dumber than they look. Randy grabs the mic and says that the Bloodline put him on the shelf for 18 months, so now it is time to put the Bloodline down for good. Cody grabs the mic and hypes Kevin Owens and Randy Orton by listing their accomplishments in WWE, and says that if this Bloodline mess wasn't here to be dealt with, he would probably be defending his championship for the people of Madison Square Garden. Randy's reaction is priceless. He's like, "Bro, if you want a challenger, look no further." Randy heel turn confirmed at Money in the Bank? We will see. Nick is back, but with police this time. Cody says that he thought he had finished the Bloodline at WrestleMania and that he does not know why the match is called versus the Bloodline at Money in the Bank, because all Solo is to Cody is just a seat filler for Roman Reigns. Nick and the police reach the ring. All 3 are escorted out by the police. Finally some calm in the arena. Backstage, Nick puts all 3 of them in a car and then that car goes out of the arena. End of segment. Next up, we have Money in the Bank qualifying match between Tiffany Stratton, Jade Cargill, and Candice. Just as Jade has the match under control, Nia Jax shows up to presumably hit Jade and interfere with the match. Bianca shows up to confront Nia and stops her from interfering. The match continues. Jade Cargill has a misstep, and she flies out of the ring and lies face down on the floor. Nia Jax starts laughing and starts approaching her. But before she can do anything, Bianca is there to stop her. She turns her around, and they start arguing. They're busy with each other when Indy Hartwell shows up, and she attacks Jade Cargill, and she goes face first into the ringside pole. Bianca starts chasing Indy Hartwell. Jade Cargill is out of the equation. Tiffany hits the prettiest moonsault on Candice. She pins her, and Tiffany is going to Money in the Bank. After the match, even Nia says that it is Tiffy time. She endorses Tiffany in front of the crowd. Tiffany joins these women in her Money in the Bank match. And that's the end of the match. Next up, backstage, boring Bayley and stale Naomi are talking to each other. Bayley says, girl, you have to qualify tonight and then with Money in the Bank match, girl." Naomi says, girl, that would mean I would have to cash in on you, girl." Bayley says, "We will worry about that later, girl." Paige from Wish.com shows up to say that they should stop this wishful thinking because Paige from Wish.com is going to be Miss Money in the Bank. End of segment. Michin goes to Nick and says that she has not been pinned tonight by anyone, and she doesn't like it. She wants to lose to someone, so Nick should give her a match against Nia Jax because Nia Jax attacked her last week. Nick says he will think about it. She leaves, and the Street Profits show up with their sister. And then, it is the return of Pretty Deadly. Yes, they're back. Montez says he has an idea and it is Street Profits vs Pretty Deadly. Nick agrees and this match is set for next week in Canada. End of segment. Backstage, Paul asks Solo 2 things. 1. What is the Bloodline planning on doing tonight? And 2. Where is Jacob Fatu? Solo says that since Paul is now Solo's wise man, Solo will listen to Paul, and as such, Jacob Fatu is not here tonight, and he will not be here tonight. Solo says that Jacob is not here because Solo listens to his wise man, and Solo says that they're going to make this official tonight in front of everyone. Paul looks confused. End of segment. Next up, we have a qualifying match between Some Santos Guy, LA Knight, and Logan Paul. Logan Paul makes his entrance and says that he is not here alone. He has brought with him some help, and it is Tyrese, the dude with 3 wives and 17 children, as it is stated on his shirt. This dude is also here. I guess Tyrese plays for one sports team, and he plays for the other one. The match gets underway, and during the match, Logan calls Tyrese to the ringside. He instructs Tyrese to get the brass knuckle from this dude. Tyrese gets the knuckles to help Logan, and then this dude also hops over the fence. They argue amongst each other, and he fails to give the brass knuckles to Logan Paul. LA Knight rolls over Logan Paul, and Knight wins the match. He joins these men in the Money in the Bank match. After the match is over, Tyrese and Logan start circling around Knight. This dude gets into the ring to even out the score. Tyrese and Logan leave, and these two stand tall in the ring. Next up, Apollo and Corbin are talking about how they keep losing and how they're both such boring wrestlers. Carmelo Hayes shows up and says he is going to win Money in the Bank and his shirt will then say Melo in the Bank and it will sell out on day 1. Apollo says to Carmelo that you are naive and that Carmelo should learn how to win a match from Apollo. Funny stuff by Apollo Crews. Melo says he pinned Randy Orton last week and he is anything but naive and that he will win Money in the Bank. End of segment. Next, a tribute is paid to late Sika. A vignette for Andrade plays, and since he is a Mexican, he says that he is taking everything. He wears sunglasses to cover his eyes because he has just had cataract surgery. End of vignette. Next up, a qualifying match between these 3 women gets underway. Jade Cargill shows up for some payback against Indy Hartwell. She grabs Indy and pushes her face first in the ringside pole. Naomi does the weirdest pinning maneuver ever and she wins the match. She joins these women in the Money in the Bank match. End of match. Next up, we have the Bloodline acknowledgement ceremony. Backstage, DIY is talking to a Red Byron Saxton. Austin Theory shows up and Johnny says to Austin that he should open his eyes because Grayson Waller is a fake friend and that he is just using him. Before he could really make his point, Grayson shows up and attacks DIY. Theory grabs Waller and he takes him out of there. DIY is lying on the floor like a couple of B-words. End of segment. The Bloodline acknowledgement ceremony gets underway. Paul is introducing them as he does so every time, but Solid is what Roman used to do and asks for the microphone from Paul in the same fashion. He says that the Bloodline has another member here. He is the enforcer of the Bloodline now, just as Solo used to be for Roman Reigns. Jacob Fatu is here, and Solo calls him out to the ring. Paul's reaction is on point. Jacob Fatu makes his entrance, and it is a cool-looking one. Jacob Fatu is still constipated. When Jacob gets to the ring, Solo says to the crowd, just as Roman used to do so, he says, "Acknowledge me." Paul's reaction is again priceless. The whole Bloodline acknowledges him but Paul does not. Yet. He asks one fake Uso to acknowledge him and he does. He asks the other fake Uso to acknowledge him and he does so as well. He asks Jacob Fatu to acknowledge him and he says that he loves Solo and that he acknowledges him. He then asks Paul Heyman to acknowledge him. Paul looks conflicted. The fake Uso brings out Hula Fala and gives it to Paul so that he can adorn Solo with the highest honor, making him the head of the table and the tribal chief. Paul is devastated. He grabs the beads and starts crying. He is missing the hell out of Roman Reigns right now. He grabs the microphone and says that Solo, I love you but you are not my tribal chief. The crowd goes wild. Paul starts crying. Solo hits Paul with a Samoan spike. Jacob Fatu goes up top and he hits Paul with the Uso splash. The Bloodline then clears the announcer's table. They pick up Paul Heyman and Shield powerbomb him through the table. This was hard to watch. The pop when Roman comes back is going to be insane. Jacob Fatu adorns and honors Solo with Hula Fala and the High Chief title. They all stand tall. We the ones. That was the end of this show, ladies and gentlemen. Tune back into the channel for Monday Night Raw. Leave a like before you go and comment down your favorite part of today's episode. Toodles.